Good afternoon, my dear brothers and sisters. How are you doing? It's a nice 75 degrees out here today. All right, so we are going to be reading from 101 Proofs for God. And this was written by Jim Stevens, a very dear friend of mine. And, my name is Michelle. And I am going to be reading chapter 18th, the proof of God, called The Fossil Record. Okay. Here's the real bottom line on the fossil record. There has never been any substantiation of the theory of evolution by Darwin. In fact, as more and more and better fossils are discovered, the evidence for evolution is getting worse and worse. Charles Darwin knew in 1859, when he proposed his theory in On the Origin of Species, that there were a lot of gaps and missing links in the fossil record. Even Charles Darwin in 1859 admitted to this. He assumed that over time and with new discoveries that there would be more evidence discovered in favor of evolution. But in fact, the opposite has happened. Darwin said in his On the Origin of Species, he quotes, "Lastly, looking not to any one time, but to all time, if my theory be true, numberless intermediate varieties, linking closely together all the species of the same group, must assuredly have existed." So, in order for higher species to have evolved from lower species, there must necessarily be many, numerous, intermediate stages of transformation. If you think about it, there should be more intermediate entities than just the first species and the last one. Astoundingly, if you believe in evolution, there is not even one of the proposed links in the fossil record. Zip! Zero! Nada! This is a quote. Author Luther Sunderland interviewed 5 respected museum officials, recognized authorities in their individual fields of study, including representatives from the American Museum, the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, and the British Museum of Natural History. None of the 5 officials were able to offer a single example of a transitional series of fossilized organisms that document the transformation of one kind of plant or animal into another kind. Wow, there you have it. The British Museum of Natural History boasts the largest collection of fossils in the world. Among the 5 respected museum officials, Sunderland interviewed Dr. Colin Patterson, senior paleontologist at the British Museum and editor of a prestigious scientific journal. Patterson is a well-known expert, having an intimate knowledge of the fossil record, he was unable to give a single example. He was unable to give one single example of macro evolutionary transition. In fact, Patterson wrote a book for the British Museum of Natural History entitled Evolution. When asked why he had not included a single photograph of a transitional fossil in his book, Patterson responded, "I fully agree with your comments on the lack of direct illustration of evolutionary transitions in my book. If I knew of any, fossil or living, I would certainly have included them." If evolution were true, there should be millions of fossils of the intermediate links between species along every branch of the tree, but there are none. Scientists need to find a lot more than just one missing link. It needs to find millions, but there aren't any to be had. There aren't any to be had. We keep finding better and better preserved fossils. The most recent discoveries in Changjiang, China, are the most outstanding fossils ever found, but still no missing links. Since Darwin was alive, paleontologists have uncovered about 99.9% of our current fossil record, but still no missing links. In Darwin's day, they only knew of about 0.1% of the fossil record that we have today. Still, after all these new fossils, there's no missing link. Despite the tremendous increase in geological activity in every corner of the globe, and despite the discovery of many strange and hitherto unknown forms, the infinitude of connecting links has still not been discovered. And the fossil record is about as discontinuous as it was when Darwin was writing The Origin. The intermediates have remained as elusive as ever, and their absence remains, a century later, one of the most striking characteristics of the fossil record. The second enormous problem with the fossil record for the theory of evolution is that, now this is the second enormous problem of the theory of evolution, is that the vast majority of species appear at about the same time in history, called the Cambrian explosion. Darwin predicted that slowly and gradually over time, the higher forms evolved from the lower forms. But the fossil record indicates that almost all life forms suddenly appeared during the Cambrian age, which is about 2% of the timeline of the life of the Earth. Here is a chart of the actual fossil record for the appearance of species.